With the DLC only being a little under a week away, I thought it'd be really fun to take a look at some cores that could potentially be really good coming into Regulation F. So the first core I want to take a look at today is centered around one of my personal favorite Pokemon returning in the DLC, and that is Whimsicott. Now, for those who don't understand what Whimsicott does, this is basically one of the premier Tailwind setters we have in the game. I feel like I've said this a lot in the past, when I've been looking at some of the ones returning in Regulation F, but Whimsicott is a Pokemon that is faster than Tornadus naturally and gets access to Taunt, meaning that you've got the faster Tailwinds and you also have the ability to potentially shut down the Tornadus from getting up their own Tailwind, which is fantastic because one, this will kind of force Tornaduses to run more Mental Herb than anything, or at least to run Terra Dark, meaning they don't get to run things, like for example Terra Steel, which I do think is pretty good, especially into Pokemon like Chien-Pao, right? Especially when you pair it with things like Rocky Helmet, right? So Whimsicott is the, arguably the best Tailwind setter in the game. It has two pretty decent stab moves in both Moonblast and Energy Ball, but really the main thing I'll be looking at today with Whimsicott is its access to Fake Tears. Now, this one has an incredibly deep support pool, which is why I personally love it so much, and I think it's incredibly good. It has access to things like Encore, you can set up Sunny Day. There's a lot this one can do. But really, my personal favorite way to play it is with Tailwind plus Fake Tears. And the core we're going to be looking at today is pairing it up with, my two favorite, basically my favorite combo in the game right now, the dynamic special attacking duo, and that is Chi-Yu and that is Flutter Mane. Now, these two mods already hit insanely hard, right? Like, you have a look at these special attack stats. You got 135 on both mons, plus you got Beads of Ruin. Beads of Ruin's really cool with Whimsicott because it will allow Whimsicott's pretty average special attack stat to actually start dealing a bit of damage. I just realized too, these guys are level 100. Let's put it at level 50 just for the simplicity of things here, right? But even with this Whimsicott here, right, I'm not gonna lie, this is a mon that I don't think will run Focus Sash anymore. I do think, something along the lines of Covered Cloak will definitely be the go-to. And then, potentially things like Terra Ghost as well, depending on what is popular in the metagame, right? It really just comes down to what's popular and what you need to live, because there are going to be things like potentially Metagross that could come in and threaten this mon with a one-shot. Granted, obviously, you will get things like your Terra up, but just being able to live, one attack and, keep playing the game is obviously very, very important. I could definitely see like Terra Steel becoming pretty popular on this mon. But even then, 97 attack, while it's not great, you've got a really good stab with Moonblast, and then you pair that up with Beads of Ruin, all of a sudden this mon's actually doing, a decent chunk of damage. But then you look at the guy Chi-Yu here. My guy, one of my all-time favorite Pokemon now. This spawn next to Whimsicott is insane, right? First of all, it loves Tailwind, which Whimsicott has, and again, it's the premier Tailwind setter. This one is just going to run like max speed. Also, I just thought about it too. Like, maybe I should have considered this earlier. I think Terra Dark in Whimsicott Mirrors is going to be pretty popular, simply because Whimsicotts need to run, I think it's 220, is it? Yeah, so you need to run 220 Timid to outspeed opposing Tornaduses, and it's like, at this point, why not just put the extra 4 EVs in? I don't think defensively those 4 EVs are going to make a difference anywhere, and obviously you don't want to get outsped potentially by other Whimsicotts, lose the speed I get taunted, so because of that, I could see Dark being pretty decent. But basically, I think personally, the way I kind of see this, upcoming metagame developing is people, especially with Incineroar being back in the game, are definitely going to start, leaning towards a more balanced metagame. There's probably going to be a little less Tailwind running around. Obviously Whimsicott and Tornadus are both going to be really good Pokemon still, but I definitely think with the surge of, Incineroar, we're really going to start seeing, a lot of balanced team arise. And that's something we're definitely going to talk about later in the video with some balanced teams I think Incineroar in particular is going to be really good with. But for now, I'm just saying, I think Whimsicott paired up, with potentially, say, like a Focus Sash Chi-Yu, because again, like, Chi-Yu's biggest issue right now, and like I ran this mon at Brisbane Regional, was it felt like it just didn't do enough damage without the choice specs, because like it didn't really have anything else boosting it, right? Whereas Whimsicott is giving you that extra damage you need with Fake Tears, which could then, allow you to open up things like potentially a choice specs on the Flutter Mane, right? That way you can run Sash, gives you the extra survivability you need, because unfortunately this one really isn't living anything, and it also kind of really wants Protect, right? So all of a sudden you could start running things like, Overheat, Heat Wave, and then like Dark Pulse or Snarl, depending on, how popular things like potentially Heatran are. Also, Psy Spam is another important one, and you can run something like this, right? Terra, you're probably still going Terra Ghost, let's be honest. Maybe you're mad lad, you go Terra Fire. Yeah, I personally love Terra Ghost, but obviously I'll have to test it out when the format comes. And then, the same thing you always see with Flutter Mane, right? You go like your basically triple stab plus whatever coverage move you want, right? Whether that be Thunderbolt, potentially Power Gem as well. I don't know the calcs on Power Gem versus Incin. Part of me feels like Terra Ghost Moonblast probably just does more damage anyway. But obviously the biggest issue this mon is going to have is you can't really threaten a one-shot on the Incin, or at least like you shouldn't, because Incin should calc for it, without the Chi-Yu on the board. So potentially, things like Terra Water plus Terra Blast as well could be pretty good, allowing you to obviously take things like potentially Metagross if that does become a really good mon, and just the standard stuff, right? Things like, Icicle Crash coming from Chien-Pao's, all of a sudden it's not a roll because you're just really bulky, right? But this is definitely the core I'm the most excited to use. I'll definitely be using it early ladder. just because I love Whimsicott, and I think it pairs incredibly well with my favorite combo of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet so far. Now, speaking of Incineroar, the next card I'm going to quickly touch on here, and I will try to be fast with this one just because I don't really think I need to go into it as much. It's the combo of Incineroar plus Rillaboom paired up with a, you know, an offensive water type. There are two that come to mind. The first one is obviously Urshifu Rapid Strike. Basically, what this core does incredibly well is it positions around your, you know, basically your setup sweepers, right? And Fire Water Grass cores are always incredibly good. You know, you have things like Incineroar, you know, if Amoonguss is like a threat, obviously you can run Goggles, and then having like Incin plus Rillaboom means like Amoonguss is just like free. And then, you know, you run the obvious things out. You go like Fake Out, you got Flare Blitz, and then, you know, Parting Shot, and then whatever you want in the last slot, right? Could be Taunt, could be whatever. If it gets Knockoff back, Knockoff's obviously a really good option as well. This mon's bag is so deep, it really doesn't matter. Like, if your team needs it, you can run like Assault Vest Snarl, like, really, this month, it's really good, let's be honest here. And defensive terrors on it too are going to be pretty cool. I was actually talking to some of the guys in my Discord about it earlier. I think Water and Fairy, like, off the rip seem like the two most obvious ones. I can definitely see Water being really good because I don't think Urshifu is going to drop off. But also that's actually the other move I was going to say here, Will-O-Wisp as well. Because, like, if Urshi does continue to be, like, you know, one of the most used mons, this mon can just kind of, like, Terra Water in front of it and burn it, and then it's like, okay, like, I've done my job. You kind of have to CC if I go Terra Water, and at that point, you -1, you burn. It's not doing a lot, right? And then Rillaboom, in a pretty similar sense to what we were just saying there, this mon is just a good bulky fake out mon that also hits pretty hard with, you know, a really good stab in Wood Hammer. Obviously gets good priority in Grassy Glide. And then obviously depending on the team, you know, you get things like high horsepower, which I personally love. But again, you're pairing this with like, you know, the idea of potentially fake out pivoting, right? So you've got things like, you know, fake out. Oh, sorry, I've already got fake out on there into U-turn, right? So these two, like, they form a really nice core in the sense that like, oh, you can fake out U-turn, you know, fake out Parting Shot. So on and so forth. And then you pair that up with what, you know, is a very strong water type Pokemon in Urshifu. Obviously, I think this one, it could potentially run Scarf. I think Mystic Water, personally, in my opinion, is better. Then you're obviously just running the classic stuff, right? Surging Strikes, Close Combat. If you, like, maybe there's a world where, like, bulk up Clear Amulet is, like, a thing. I don't know, with, like, Drain Punch in this slot. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But regardless, I think Urshifu pairs incredibly well with these two. But another potential water mod that I really want to touch on, it's something I'm definitely going to test myself, is actually Palafin. Basically, the main reason why I think Palafin could make a comeback with these mons is, like, one, as strong as Urshifu is, technically, like, Palafin's stronger, right? It's faster, it hits harder, it just doesn't have that guaranteed crit, which is, it's like, really, it's kryptonite. But it also has just, like, a Jet Punch, which is, like, insane, right? Like, Jet Punch coming off, like, this attack stat. Let's pull it up real quick. I just want to get these two mons next to each other so I can kind of explain it, right? So, like, obviously Jet Punch is only like 60 damage, where like Aqua Jet off this mon's 40. Obviously Surging Strikes is even stronger. But for the purpose of this exercise, I just want to like show the damage difference in these two mons here. Like, because Urshifu, dude, this mon hits harder. It hits 200 attack. That's pretty insane. And then Palafin, I think, hits like, yeah, dude, like 233. Like, that's a lot of damage, right? And they're both mons that really do like, obviously, going Terra Water. But clearly there are, you know, KOs that Urshifu needs. It's like, you know, Surging Strikes to pick up that Palafin might just be able to do with a Jet Punch, right? Like Terra Water, Jet Punch off like Mystic Water. It's still an insane amount of damage. And then like Wave Crash is also like really, really good. Like, you know, things that can, you know, calc to live a Surging Strike from this aren't living a Wave Crash from Palafin, which is, you know, something that is obviously really good. I guess the main difference clearly is that Urshifu is strong on turn 1, which is Palafin's biggest weakness. But then when you pair it with mons like these two, potentially Amoonguss as well, where, you know, you've got the Fake Out plus, you know, Intimidate pressure, you know, Fake Out plus U-turn pressure, you could really like be in this situation where, you know, you're going for something like, you know, say, potentially like just go like Fake Out, switch into your Rillaboom, and then you like Parting Shot out, you know, back into your Palafin as you Fake Out again, and then all of a sudden your Palafin's on the board. It's full HP. They haven't really done much. You can cycle in your Intimidate again if you need, and just go from there. And one other small thing too is I definitely think, and it's something I'll talk about again later in the video, is I think there are certain Defiant mons that could definitely see a rise with Incineroar. I won't say them now because I'm literally going to talk about them in like 5 minutes. But because of that, I think Haze could be also really good on calls like this, right? Where you've got these mods that potentially could just be like setting up because your Incin's pivoting, and then, you know, Palafin kind of means like, hey, you know, you want to pivot in your Incin, but then you just like kind of like, you know, you haze off the potential boost, which is maybe not like the greatest thing ever, but again, like you can go like flip turn and just, you know, let the cycling begin, right? Let the cycling begin. Anyway, moving on to the next one. This is another one of my personal favorite calls that I'm so excited for, and it's my guy Excadrill pairing up with my guy T-Tar. I love T-Tar so much. This is like one of my favorite Pokemon. I used it at OCIC this year, and it kind of just feels like it hasn't really been good since then. Obviously, I think it had one result at like Sacramento, but since then it's just been pretty average. And really the main reason is it's the only weather setup that hasn't really had like any good friends, right? Like this mod's basically just had like Lycanroc and I think Houndstone, right? I think were like the only two Sand Rush users we've had for the entire format. And you look at these stats here, very average, 101, and sure it's like 115, 112, but like you've got no bulk at all. Where, you know, at least Excadrill, you know, it's got that absurd attack stat and it's like decently bulky thanks to its HP stat, and its speed's okay, right? But basically, I think these two mons paired up with, you know, some really just like some mons that kind of help them out with their water weaknesses and their fighting weaknesses. Obviously, first one that comes to mind there is just Amoonguss, right? Amoonguss, I think, is going to be fantastic. If you can get like Amoonguss next to Excadrill in the sand, I think that is pretty damn good. Obviously, there are going to be other mons that are, you know, really well paired with this as well. I think things like Rillaboom and Sinnoh, obviously, you know, I think they're just good mons. I think they'll pair really well with it. But really, the main part of this core here is these two in particular. And the reason is because this guy here, Excadrill, has a fantastic matchup into Flutter Mane. The ability to like outspeed it, right? Like almost always. Because if you have a look at this, right? I'm pretty sure, like, obviously this is just outspeeding it, right? Oh, actually, that's a lie. You actually have to go Jolly. Oh, do you have to go? No, 280. Okay, let me do the math. I think Timid max speed Flutter actually hits like, it's like 307 or 8, I think, off memory. So maybe you are forced to go Jolly depending how popular it becomes. Oh, wait, actually did. Okay, I'm gonna do the math. Hold up. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I was actually pretty sure about this. So obviously I've got Houndstone here, but I put 88 speed just to match, obviously, our good friend Excadrill here. But a Jolly max speed Excadrill is actually 1 point faster than a speed booster Flutter Mane that is Timid max speed. Something to keep in mind, I don't know if we actually should be running Timid max speed, Jolly max speed Excadrill, and I definitely don't think max speed Flutter Mane is good unless you're like, obviously like Sash, which means you'd have to play it with Sun, but regardless, Excadrill does have the ability to outspeed Flutter Mane, which I do think is very important. Assault Vest, because of that, is also pretty decent on this mon. But I could also see a world where even like Terra Rock is like actually pretty good on Excadrill. But really, I'm pretty sure, you know, the main thing is probably just gonna be like Life Orb, triple attack plus 3 attack plus protect, right? Like obviously, you're probably gonna go for, does it get high horsepower? Yeah, high horsepower, probably Iron Head. Rock Slide's a fantastic third option, obviously, and then just protect, right? Really, really good. I think this core will put a lot of pressure on, you know, potential Tailwind teams as well. The only issue they would have is like if Tailwind teams obviously have their own way to set up, you know, weather, whether that be, you know, like potentially Sunny Day on our you know, Whimsicott, potentially to also Rain Dance Tornadoes, obviously. But definitely still a really good core. It puts on a lot of pressure. This is like actually really good into Flutterfish. I think this, like, its biggest issue obviously is going to be things like Incin, and because of that, I do think Clear Amulet could become pretty good. In all honesty, you could even see like Clear Amulet plus Swords Dance become pretty good on teams like this, where, you know, you potentially lead like, you know, Excadrill plus Shroom, even, you know, like Excadrill plus Rillaboom or Amoonguss. Actually, Rillaboom would be kind of pretty cool, right? Similar to how people were playing Gholdengo with Plot, where like you kind of lead them together, you like plot up, and then like once you get set up, then you can just bring the T-Tar in and then just like start swooping through with Excadrill. So that's definitely something pretty cool as well. And obviously Incin kind of fills that role. And then T-Tar is just T-Tar. I think Assault Vest is probably going to be its best, you know, its best item going forward. And then just the standard stuff, right? You're talking Knockoff, you're talking Rock Slide, and then really whatever the metagame kind of really at that point kind of started leaning towards, right? I think Terra Blast has obviously been really good on it the whole time it's been viable. Obviously Terra Psychic was pretty good recently. I also ran Terra Flying back at OCIC, which is fantastic into things like Great Tusk, which was obviously pretty decent into you. So yeah, Terra Blast, and then whatever you need, right? Again, like low kick, if like, you know, say King Gambit stocks are rising, low kick's obviously great. But yeah, I do think Sand will have a bit of a resurgence, just simply because Excadrill's a pretty good mon. Now, the next core I want to touch on here is a core that to me, it's going to be the most hit or miss, right? And it's the Metagross paired up with Chien-Pao core. Now, the reason why, like, I think this core is going to be good no matter what is because, like, Urshifu plus Chien-Pao is just good. Like, simple as that. It's a good core. Like, together they work really well. You know, you're talking about two mons here that kind of don't really like fairy types, in particular Flutter Mane. Metagross is like, hey, Flutter Mane, I'm just going to kill you with a bullet punch next to my Chien-Pao. So that's pretty cool. But really, Metagross is just the super, super interesting mon coming to, like, for me coming into the format, you know. This is a mon, statistically speaking, it's very bulky on the physical end, which is great because obviously, you know, so far throughout, you know, all of Scarlet and Violet, physical mons have really reigned supreme outside of, like, say, Flutter Mane, you know, maybe like Chi-Yu, Heatran, Gholdengo. Like, there's a handful of good special attackers, but for the most part, they're all physical, right? And this mon even has a really good special defense stat. And again, when you pair that with something like Assault Vest, all of a sudden this mon can be an absolute threat, especially to, you know, big, you know, some of the bigger threats on the special end, things like Flutter Mane, right? You know, I think its biggest issue going forward is going to be like the Iron Head's best, you know, Steel type move, and then it's got like Zen Headbutt, which is like pretty bad on the physical end. But again, it all kind of comes down to how this one's played. Obviously, we don't know how things like the new Terra mechanics gonna, you know, come into play. There has been rumored that one of the new moves, you know, is in a, you know, a quote-unquote leak. Supercharged Cell, which, by the way, that is a confirmed move. Cerebi did confirm that through their playtest. But one of the leaks, I think, touched on Supercharged Cell, basically said Metagross gets it, and it's a Omni boost, right? Now, this is a leak. I personally don't believe it. I think this is people just, you know, throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks. But if it does get something like that, you know, potential like Power Herb, I think it is. Power Herb? Power Herb. Yeah, like potentially Power Herb plus like this Supercharged Cell could be interesting, because you're talking about a mon that's really bulky, hits really hard. But its biggest issue is like it's got this attack stat but no moves to really abuse it, and then it's got this like really average speed stat. But if you have like a potential Omni boost and then like clear body, so your speed doesn't get lowered, your attack doesn't get lowered, all of a sudden that could be a really threatening mon, just because like you look how naturally high these two moves are, right? Like getting a free Assault Vest and a free, you know, like an Intimidate technically on everything is pretty damn cool. But really, that aside, I do think like, you know, potential like Choice Banded, obviously, I can't English, my god. Choice Banded next to Chien-Pao is obviously really good. And then yeah, Urshifu does what Urshifu does, right? You can run Mystic Water, you can run Choice Scarf, they're both pretty good. This guy, he likes his Focus Sash. Obviously has a pretty decent matchup into some of the meta mons, you know, pretty decent into obviously, you know, things like Whimsicott, for example, and you know, and whatnot. This mod, it's just good, right? It hits really hard, it has some really good moves, it's very fast, its ability is pretty busted, especially when you have like mons like this next to it, right? So this core, like, I'm not going to really say much else about it, but it's definitely a core I think has a lot of potential. I just worry that it will struggle, because part of me feels like mons like Metagross are going to like, I don't want to say like struggling to mons like Iron Hands, because I do think Metagross obviously beats Iron Hands one-on-one, especially with like Chien-Pao there, just because I don't think you're going to out-heal the damage coming off a potential, you know, Zen Headbutt. But obviously I think, you know, when you're pairing it up with things like Amoonguss and whatnot, all of a sudden things, you know, they do get pretty dicey, right? Now, the final core I'm going to talk about here before I start to wrap things up is what I'm kind of expecting to be the go-to early meta core. You know, as I said earlier, I do think, you know, Incineroar Balance is basically going to take over, especially in the early format. This mon is too damn good. You know, I kind of, you know, put out in the video the other day that I think these two mons here are going to be number 1 and 2 in usage, but I also think they're going to be the dynamic duo, right? What Fluttermane doesn't like Incineroar. Like, when I think about Fluttermane, right, this one has, like, what, 2 weaknesses? It's Steel and it's Ghost. Incineroar resists both of those, and the other thing, you know, Fluttermane is weak to is physical attackers, right? Incin's like, hey, I got Intimidate, right? I got you covered, right? This mon with, like, Choice Specs, you know, bulky, you know, special attack booster, whatever, is going to be insane. And Incin's just Incin, right? This mon, it does it all, right? We said before, it's got Fake Out, you know, it's got Snarl, it's got, like, Taunt. It's like, you know, if like Parting Shot, obviously, like if Parting Shot plus Snarl become popular, it can like Throat Chopper. Like, dude, its bag is deep, dude. Its bag is deep. I call it Kyrie Irving because, my god, there's nothing this mon can't do, in all honesty, right? And then you start looking at, you know, potential mons to pair with it. Obviously, I touched on Rillaboom earlier in, you know, one of the earlier cores. For this one in particular, I think Amoonguss. I think Amoonguss is too good. I think mons like Urshifu are still going to be really good in the metagame. And Amoonguss is just Amoonguss. It redirects, it spores, it has Regenerator. I mean, I think everyone at this point knows what this mod does, right? It's incredibly annoying to deal with, right? You got Pollen Puff if you're playing Balance, you know. You put a couple mons to sleep, you fake outside Pollen Puff, you know, you switch in your Incin, get the Intimidate. They think they're going to kill it, they don't. You know, it lives, it gets its Citrus Berry off, you side Pollen Puff. All of a sudden, that Incin you just did 80% to is back at full HP, and it feels freaking bad, man. Yeah, so that Tricore there, I think, is going to be pretty damn good. Oh, what am I missing? There's one I'm missing. Oh, Urshifu. Yeah. Urshifu. Look, it's kind of similar, right? Like, what these two mons want is just good support. They do the damage, right? This one, like, honestly, you could go, like, Surging Strikes with, like, 76 attack, and this mon's just pumping out damage. It really doesn't care, yeah? Like, it doesn't matter, like, how strong you think you are. That's not 76, 108. That's an awkward number. Okay. I didn't realize it was that. But yeah, you know, you just like slap a Mystic Water on this thing, you know, hell, like put Safety Goggles on it if you really want. And then you just like slap these two on it and it's gonna do damage, right? It doesn't matter. Surging Strikes does a lot of damage. Same with Fluttermane. If you have like Choice Specs and Moonblast, you can run this thing bulky. It really doesn't matter. Just go like, what are people running? There was like was it like 204? Like, I need level 50, so I know this. Level 50, because it was like 145 HP, I think was the bump. It's something like this, I think people are running. And then, like, you could honestly just go like this. Like, honestly, that's like, ooh. Like, something like that is fine, right, with Choice Specs. Like, it hits hard, and then, yeah, like, these two men, like, they just want this good support. And then I kind of, said earlier, we'll touch on the Defiant mons. And this is where I think these two mons in particular are going to become pretty damn important. One of which is Annihilate. Now, the reason I think Annihilate in particular is going to be so good is because of how it works into Incineroar, right? Like, Incineroar's like main thing is its Snarl, obviously it's got like Flare Blitz as well, which I don't have here. But obviously it's like, it likes to fake out, it likes to intimidate, it likes to Parting Shot. I would say that is what Incineroar does best, right? Intimidate, fake out, Parting Shot. Annihilate's like, hey, I'm a ghost type, I don't care about your fake out, right? I'm a Defiant mon, which means if you intimidate me, I actually get +1. And then it's like, okay, if you Parting Shot me, I actually get +3 because you get +2 for the special attack boost, and then you get +2 for the attack boost, obviously -1. So you get +3 off that. So Annihilate is like fantastic into it. And then I'm sure you could easily calc. You know what, what's your bulk? I'm going to quickly pull up a calc here. 9590. Let's just slap our good friend Chiyu in the damage calc here, right? Just go Chiyu, we just go 9590. We'll just go like max HP because I'm assuming this thing will probably just run max HP. Probably 4 there because you're not going to really run much else outside of that. And then just go like Annihilate, bulk up, +1 because you got a Defiant boost, and bang, look at that. You're almost a one-shot already. Like literally just a one-shot just for existing, right? That's 36 Adamant. That's pretty damn good. How much does it take? Does 116 kill? I don't think you're going to want to run 116. Yeah, I don't think that's a big enough change, but still, like, you see the point of what I'm saying, right? Like, all of a sudden, this, like, 36, like, attack is, like, your 20% chance to kill this mon as is just for existing, and then it allows you to dump all your points into bulk. And because of that, I think it's going to be good. Obviously, I think there are other mons out there as well that are going to be spamming stuff as well. I think, honestly, I think Landorus is going to be like another really sick, mon on this, on a call like this. I don't want to like skip over the next mon I was going to talk about, but like, I still think, Lando does what Lando does, right? It's a really strong flying type. It's a very, very good choice scarf mon, especially on teams like this. And it also kind of helps out with the pivot, right? Like what you get from like Incin and Amoonguss, which I didn't really touch on, is like Parting Shot plus, Regenerator spam, right? You can like switch out your Amoonguss into the Incin, then you can then, Parting Shot out to get your Amoonguss kind of back in safely and then kind of cycle through. And Lander has also worked really well with that with like Choice Scarf plus, U-turn, right? You just start getting like this, like Intimidate cycling, Pollen Puff, like, because again, like you can like cycle out your Intimidate into a different Intimidate, Pollen Puff it back up, you've got Regenerator, Spore. It's just really, really annoying to deal with, and like because of that, I think these three could also be like really damn good. But the other Defiant mon I want to touch on is a pretty obvious one, King Gambit. Now, while Gambit in particular doesn't have a great matchup into Incineroar, it has like just a really good matchup into like everything else. And I think if this one just goes like Terra Fire, because like you are going to have to defensively Terra against Incineroar, Terra Fire just makes this like free. Incin is like only ever going to run like Flare Blitz and like maybe knock off. And you really don't care, same as what we're saying about, Annihilate before. Like this mon doesn't care if you like, go for a Snarl, a Parting Shot, Intimidate, anything like that. It loves the attack boosts. Its Sucker Punches are insane. Kowtow is obviously like really good. Does it get knockoff? I don't know if that's because I'm on Anything Goes and technically like Bishop used. I don't know about that. I haven't actually seen people run it. But obviously, things like Iron Head as well are obviously really solid protect, whatever. Yeah, you can run Swords Dance if you, if you're crazy with it. But yeah, I feel like, honestly, Terra Fire, actually, Terra Fire's usage, I think, will always, it'll come down to basically, does this mon run Will-O-Wisp or not, right? If Will-O-Wisp is popular on the Incin, I think Terra Fire will probably have to be the go-to. If not, you can see people stick with things like Terra Dark, right? Because like a +1 Terra Dark, Sucker Punch is a lot of damage. But yeah, its biggest issue is it obviously can't touch Incin itself, but obviously I think it'll be able to deal with Incin's partner. And I think the issue with Incin is if you're kind of like stuck there, just, like existing while this one is just aiming down the other slot, that can be kind of rough, It's definitely not the easiest. But other ones I think that could potentially round out this core, Brian Hands. Obviously, Brian Hands is like a mon that I think a lot of people are kind of looking at as the mon that will fall off in this format, simply because just Incin has a solid matchup into it, right? It's a faster fake out mon, right? He's got 50, he's got 60, and then obviously, Intimidate against Brian Hands is like, it's one of those things where this one hits so damn hard, but the harder you hit, like the more that like the Intimidate nerf actually like hurts you, right? If you have a look at this, like you're losing like what, a good 60 odd attack off this. I think, is that the math? No, the math's a little more than that. It's like 67 attack or something like that. Maybe 68? I don't know. I can't be bothered doing the math right now. But you're losing a lot of damage just off one, right? And then all of a sudden, again, we're talking about Will-O-Wisp. You could potentially spam out Will-O-Wisps. But regardless, Brian Hands is still Brian Hands. It's still going to be like one of the, top 3 fake out mons in the game. It is like with Assault Vest really good into Flutter Mane. You know, it's got things like Volt Switch as well for that fake out pivoting we were talking about. But obviously, you know, Drain Punch is like just Drain Punch is good, right? Drain Punch is good. I'm pretty sure, you know what, let's just get our let's just get Iron Hands up here. Yeah, let's just go, yeah, this set here. We're gonna go 156 because I feel like that's what everyone runs. And you're -1. I mean, Drain Punch is still doing, you know, 50% to this thing. Like, obviously, guys, this just remember, this isn't Chiyu, this is the bulk of an Incineroar. But yeah, it is still a 2-shot with Drain Punch, which I do think is still definitely something to keep in mind. And I definitely think it'll pair well with Incin. But this is definitely one of the ones I'm the most curious to see, just because it does feel like maybe Iron Hands falls off, but at the same time, it's really good at what it does. The only other thing too is I could definitely see a world where like Clear Amulet Swords Dance becomes like the play. Like you could put this with like, you know, Incin plus Rillaboom, for example, drop Fake Out and just go like Thunder Punch, and then just go like Swords Dance, like Detect, right? Like something like that could also just be like really good. That could be the adaptation, because this mon with the right support is insane. Right, like again, if you get this thing up, like just say you do this, right? You got 400 attack, you're bulky as all hell. You're definitely not doing that kind of damage, by the way. Don't copy me. I do feel like though, if you're not gonna run thingy, you definitely run. If you're not running Assault Vest, you definitely have to go max here. And look at that, perfect, absolutely perfect. Yeah, you know, you definitely have to play around with a bit, but I think Bryan Hands is still gonna be really, really good on this core. And I guess the final one I wanted to talk about, it's my guy, Roaring Mid. I think Roaring Moon is still obviously gonna be really solid. I think it is still the best speed booster bomb, like right there with Iron Bundle. But what Roaring Moon obviously brings to balance, I think, is slightly better than what Iron Bundle does, right? Knockoff is incredibly good, and Breaking Swipe is also a really, really solid option. And then just the standard stuff, right? You can go Tailwind if you want. On teams like this as well, Dragon Dance is obviously really solid. Don't run them together, but yeah, obviously DD, Tailwind, both really good options, and then just like protecting one of these slots. Roaring Moon obviously pairs incredibly well with Amoonguss. I think it's also really, really good with Flutter Mane as well. And again, if you put like, say for example, an Annihilate on this team, all of a sudden, you know, you've got a mon that like helps you out into the fighting weaknesses, but also at the same time, your opponent can't just spam out the Intimidates on your Roaring Moon, simply because things like, you know, Annihilate potentially exist. That is basically it for the cores. There was actually like one thing I did kind of want to touch on as well that I didn't at the start. I just kind of remembered. Obviously I was talking about like my, you know, my go-to core here of like Chiyu, Flutter plus like Whimsicott. Obviously there's something I'm really excited for. One of the biggest issues this team has, like if you just look at this, right, you're like, oh yeah, Urshifu kind of just like runs through the other slot. Like sure, Whimsicott could go like Moonblast, Energy Ball, whatever, yeah, to like kind of deal with it. But it kind of does run through the other slot, right? But the cool thing I do think that this like kind of core has is it's really good in Sun. Like these two mons like Sun, right? Like you go like Specs here, you know, Boosty, like Focus Sash here, like I was saying earlier, and then you could run like Sunny Day plus like Fake Tears. Like I don't know if that's actually going to be good. Like maybe there's a world where like this is the play, right? Sunny Day plus Fake Tears to like really, really boost your shit up. But then you got the guy, Walking Weight. This is really cool because this one obviously 4x resists the Urshifu, and if Urshifu like tries to go for CC, you know, Whimsicott resists it, and Flutter Mane's obviously immune to it. Again, this thing's probably gonna run Terra Ghost, so all of a sudden like this one can just like easily take on Urshifu. Like Urshi does not want to eat a Draco from this one. As a matter of fact, you know, we've done enough calcing today. The video's probably gone a bit longer than I should have, but let's just have a look at Walking Wake versus, you know, just standard Urshifu. Let's just say I'm Timid because I think Timid's gonna be good. Cool thing with this one too, for anyone who didn't know, if you have a look at this, they're actually tied, which means you would technically get the special attack boost here, even though you're max speed. But if you just drop 1 point like that and then just kind of split your defenses, you get the you get the, what's it called, the speed boost here, which is one really cool thing I do like with Walking Weight. And then you just got the old Dropper Draco Meteor, which is really, really good damage. Have a look at that. Like obviously it's not the best. But if you go like, say for example, something like this, or like in Fake Tears, I forgot, like we have Fake Tears, keep that in mind. But then you just, you know, activate the Sun, bang, all of a sudden that's killing every time. I actually wonder what a Hydra's team does here. Like, how good is this if you... I mean, 50, like if you get up the Sun, that's still a lot of damage, right? But obviously, you know, if you're going up against Shifu, they're potentially always just going for a what's it called? A Rain Dance with them on as well. So this is definitely cool. And the other one I kind of wanted to touch on as well, which I don't think I can actually pull up here, is Raging Bolt. Obviously, I can't pull up Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt's another one, obviously pretty good into Urshifu. And it also has that Thunderclap move, which is pretty interesting because depending how much... Actually, you know what? Let's just pull up like Raichu, yeah. So, it's gonna get, okay, bang, perfect. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I did a video based on damage when, like, we saw the trailer. I'm almost certain Thunderclap will be 70 base damage based off of, like, calcs I did from watching the trailer. So, and obviously, it works the same way as Sucker Punch, so that's what you would kind of expect. For anyone, I guess, who doesn't know what Thunderclap does, it's Raging Bolt's signature move. It is essentially a special Sucker Punch that is electric type. So, if you have a look here, that is not doing much damage. What if I'm, like, 252? Okay, that is not one-shotting, but let's just pray to God this, like, Raging Bolt has, like, 110. What if I give you, okay, oh, what if we just say go on Magnet? Like, yeah, there we go. What if you got 90? How low does that have to be with Magnet to one-shot? 100? Am I mod? Actually, no, I think, based off the mod's design, I don't think it's going to have much speed, which makes me think Modest will be better. So, like, what if I'm, like, Modest plus, oh my God, I don't think it's going to have 190. Okay, perfect. So, like, 90 Modest plus the boosting item, one-shot standard Shifu. There was like a Shifu I think that was running around that was like something like this. How much do I need to like one-shot that? If I'm like, let's just say 110. I mean, if I'm 110 and I have like a 50% chance to KO what is probably like a bulkier Shifu you'll see, that's pretty damn cool. So yeah, there are two mods I kind of want to just quickly touch on. I'm just going to put Zekrom here just because, you know, it's the same typing and whatnot. But there are two mods as well I think could work really, really well with this core. I could definitely see a world where like Whim's Wake is like really good. Because again, like if you're going up against like Shifu Rain, Walking Wake like loves that. And then as well, like against Rain, you know, a Dragon Electric type is good because like, hey, I resist your water moves. And then two, I'm going to fire back with some really powerful stab moves as well. So yeah, that was something I quickly wanted to throw in at the end here, guys. But yeah, I guess that's it. You know, we kind of touched on 5 cores there. Let me know what you guys think down below. Obviously, you know, we're a week away from the, you know, the DLC dropping. I'm super excited. Obviously, we don't know what any of the new mods are going to do. You know, Walking Wake could be really damn good in the format. It could be really bad. Same with Raging Bolt. Same with the, you know, Paradox Entei. Same with, you know, all the Paradox Beast, which I'm not super thinking they're going to be great just because Psychic's meh. But look, who knows? We'll see. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. Hopefully it's all fucking broken and then all of a sudden we have this really cool metagame where, you know, there's a lot of broken shit and I don't know. I just hope I can keep playing Chi-Yu Flutter Mane. That's really the goal. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Let me know down below what you guys think. And let me know if you think I missed anything. And yeah, catch you in the next one. Peace.